Welcome. I'm Reverend Sue Browning. I serve the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton in Easton, Maryland, and the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River in Chestertown, Maryland. It is good to be together. As we prepare for worship, I invite you to breathe deep, to center yourself. I invite you to bring into this space all that you are experiencing in these times. Bring your concerns, bring your frustrations, your hopes, your sense of humor. Bring it all. And we invite you also to bring all of who you are, all of your identities, all of the different ways that you see yourself and you are a part of this world. As we walk through uncertain times, I think it's really important that we ask, how is our faith serving us at this time? How is Unitarian Universalism a part of guiding your path? And this Memorial Day weekend, I know for me, the values of respect, the values of generosity, the values of gratitude, and the values of kindness are ones that come forward for me as guideposts in these times. If you have questions about Unitarian Universalism, or if you have questions about either of our congregations, please reach out. Check us out on the websites, find a way to email us, or give us a call. We would like to get to know you better. Come. Let us worship together.
Please join me as I light the chalice. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within all creation. We light this chalice for truth. May the search for truth be with us always. We light this chalice for love. May the love for others be strong in our hearts. Well, here it is, Memorial Day weekend. And frankly, it snuck up on me, perhaps because there hasn't been the usual anticipation and preparation for this first of the summer holidays. No barbecue parties for many of us, no Chestertown Tea Party, no parades. But perhaps without these usual distractions, we can focus more fully on the real purpose of Memorial Day. A day to honor those fallen soldiers and sailors who gave their futures so that we may have our presents, our nows. It's important to remember our collective past and also our collective present. And I think it's fitting that today we should also honor those and thank those on the front lines of the COVID-19 fight, those who have died and those who are still facing the threat on our behalf every day. Past and present. The author Tennessee Williams once said that life is all memory, except for the one present moment that goes by so quickly you hardly catch it going. Now, in this surreal time of social separation and distancing, it seems to me even more important to hold on to not only our collective history, but also to our individual histories. The word history incorporates the word story. May we share our stories and memories of past experiences, of ancestors, of loved ones lost. Because when we remember them, we never really lose them. Now Doug will share his thoughts for all ages.
Well, hi, I'm Doug Jurias. I'm here to talk about thoughts for all ages on this Memorial Day weekend. I'm a Rotarian as well as a Unitarian, and as you can see, I'm sitting here at Idlewild Park surrounded by our American flags that have been sponsored and placed in support of Rotary Club of Easton, in support of veterans activities. This is one of 7 flag holidays, if you don't know. What makes Memorial Day special is it's not just about those that serve this country in the military or in other ways. It's for those that died in service to this country, so that they will never be forgotten. Talk to your parents. You may have great aunts or uncles, grandparents, great-grandparents, whose lives were lost during a war or conflict on behalf of this country. And they died to make sure that we all had the privileges and the responsibilities for this great nation. And it is a great nation. This is the United States of America. We are still that shining city on the hill, of which we can all be so very proud. As a member of Rotary, I'm especially pleased because the flag holiday is because Rotary is about service above self, which is at the heart of being a good Unitarian as well. So on Monday at 3 p.m. is the moment of remembrance. So if you think about it, your parents do, go ahead and take a moment of silence and think about those people that passed away, making sure that your freedoms and your rights and your responsibilities as a United States citizen will be maintained. I have 3 candles to light today. The first candle that we light is a candle of honor, to honor those that have passed away for this holiday and those that have passed away throughout the year in service of their country and over the ages. The second candle is our candle of gratitude that we hold for those and thankfulness for all the things that we have. And the third candle is our candle of kindness, which again is at the heart of being a great Unitarian, to have kindness in our heart towards others at all times. So thank you very much and have a great Memorial weekend.
Have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. I've seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day sounded forth a trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of all before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. our car is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. His truth is marching on.
I invite us now into a time of reflection, a time of meditation. Today is a special version of our meditation. That's what I refer to as an embracing meditation. And if we were in our physical sanctuaries, it would be a time where we invite everybody up. We process down the middle aisle and everyone has a chance to light a candle. And then as we have this array of candles, we all are seated and we go through not only the joys and sorrows for the week, but the joys and sorrows in sort of a collective way for the whole year. This is very different in a virtual service. It's a time where it's different, it's harder, and I wish we could be together. But I also hope that through the candles, maybe you can light a candle during the service, light a candle afterwards, that you can feel the sense, the warmth, and the connections in this community. They are powerful ones. It's also a great time after the service today to reach out and call somebody who you know who's experienced a loss, attend one of the Zoom coffee hours where there can be some sharing. Easton is meeting at 11:30 and Chestertown Zoom coffee hour is at 11 o'clock. And it's also a time you can reach out to me, reach out to someone on the caring team, because we know it is a lot to hold, but it's also important to hold. It's also important to feel the support and the care of our communities. So I'm going to light one candle. The candle is for both the weekly joys and sorrows and the broader part of the embracing meditation. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, be with us in these uncertain of times. Be with us as we are reminded that life is fragile, but as we are reminded also that life is robust. Our first joy and sorrow is as it has been since the beginning of the virus, for all of those who died from the virus, for those who are struggling to recover, for those who are recovering, and for the many essential workers, for the first responders, the medical teams, and the many other essential workers that are working to keep us safe. We light this candle also for Harry Shaw. Harry Shaw was a long-term member of the Easton congregation, and we got word that he died this week. He was 96 years old. We'll remember Harry for his stories. We'll remember Harry for his energy, for his dapper dress, all the different ways that Harry was a major part of our life in Easton. We're also going to have this candle today holds a joy from Mary Lou. She shares my daughter-in-law Sherry, after suffering through many problems and surgery since last October related to breast cancer, had a final surgery and she's doing well. It's a joy for our family. We hold you, Mary Lou and Sherry and everybody, in our hearts. We light a candle for Kay, who's a member of Emily and Linda's extended family. Kay was hospitalized for COVID, and late Friday it seemed like everything was going well, and so we hold Kay and her extended family in our care. And now we shift to the part of the service, of the meditation, where we're holding the broader sense of losses in our community. I'm going to read the names of those in the Eastern congregation and then the Chestertown congregation who have died over the course of the year since last Memorial Day. It is hard to hear these names, and I know that. But we will together hold the sorrows, hold the memories, and hold the stories of these lives. Jack Scott Jr., Ralph Young, Ken Court, Diane Post, Joanne Baynard, Lynn Lansdale, and Harry Shaw, members or friends from Easton. From Chestertown, Richard Hawkins, Alice Lindsey, and Ann Morrison. They are each missed by our community. In the light of this candle, we hold our many personal losses, losses of parents, children, siblings, aunts and uncles, nieces, nephews, in-laws, other family members, friends, and colleagues. There are many stories in our shared losses, those that happened this year, those that go back further in time. On this Memorial Day, we hold all of those stories, those memories. And in the light of this candle, we hold those who served in the military, those who lost their lives in service. We hold their families in care, and we extend our gratitude for the many ways we are supported by those who commit to serving. I close with this reading, a reading called We Remember Them by Ronald Gitzum. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. And when we have joys that we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. Amen, and blessed be. And as we end this meditation, remember to reach out to one another. We are all connected. We need one another. collecting our stories. Let's take a big breath as we think about the candles that we lit earlier, the candle actually I lit, and the many stories upon our lives. It's humbling to think of all of those stories. And it's just a good reminder that many have come before us. They didn't come before us perfectly, but in their imperfect humanity, in their stories, we rest. It's the learnings that many have brought forward. It's the learnings that we bring forward from generation to generation, from community to community. Over these last 10 weeks, I frequently have wondered, how would my dad, who was born a salesman, how would he have heard this message on social distancing? I've wondered what Bill's dad would have advised as he risked delivering bread. Our prayer that I read earlier reminds us that when we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. And when we have joys to share, we remember them. So when I pictured my answer for my dad, because we have conversations with our ancestors that aren't here anymore, I pictured him being pretty grumpy. He'd be compliant, maybe skeptical. From Bill's dad, I just picture this really grounded sense of common sense. And my conversations go on. For some reason with these two gentlemen over the last few weeks, where would they have gotten their information? Where would they have trusted leadership? Who would they find trustworthy in the mix? I think these two very different guys would have come to the same conclusion. It would be something like a better safe than sorry narrative, and they would have moved on. They would have adapted, and they would have figured it out somehow. These were men who knew World War II. They knew the Korean War. They had both served on active sites, and they had had job challenges, vocation challenges. They had had health scares and health issues over time. And I also think beyond their own experience, embedded of their processing of the story would be the stories from their parents, from their ancestors, a mix of folks that had been in the country for a long while and much more recent immigrant stories. Because this is how our collective story is formed. It's how our responses move forward. It moves forward both in the telling of the stories and the parts we feel in our bones. It's how we respond personally, as well as collectively. So how much is this whole thing, this whole COVID-19, how much of it is unique, and how much of it is similar to challenges in the past? There have been many, many before us who have been abruptly thrown into situations and immediately had to adapt and survive. I know one of the stories I grew up hearing was actually from my mother about a major flood in 1938 in Wareham, Massachusetts, and the stories are still told. They're still on the websites. It was a time where the town went into complete crisis mode and then recovered. I think another memory I was thinking about for some reason was both in my memory and in my children's memory. My kids were more in elementary school at the time, was the huge earthquake and the massive tsunami in Indonesia in 2004. We were safe in our homes. It was way far away for us, but yet there were these images, these really powerful images of people whose lives were completely disrupted, and 250,000 people died. It was incredible to watch that. We also know that there are many stories of shared sacrifice and personal sacrifice. There are those who are the volunteer and those who are drafted into combat and the realities of violence in names that our leaders believe will make us safer, but some of those are very conflicted stories. They're tough times. And beyond combat, we know in these times that the government called folks into times of sacrifice. We hear about ration books in different places, but I think it was always broader than just what the government told you to do. You had to be willing to dive in. It was a moral issue to give for others, to try to figure out what our collective sense was. And we've seen some of that with the mask making and all the different things over these last weeks. But even if you weren't alive during these periods, there's something that travels forward in waves. Sometimes it's the specifics of the story. Sometimes we hear the actual details and they come forward to us. But I think what comes forward even more is a sense of risk, a sense of vulnerability, and this place where we know that we need to stay vigilant. We need to be prepared. We know in studies of all sorts of psychology that trauma moves forward. That's true. As does love and trust and the other parts of stories that happen when we have major disruptions. I know I love historical fiction. I think in the stories of historical fiction, we're reminded of some of the details, some of the little places that are going on. Often there is a major crisis, there is a major thing going on in the broader world, and yet we hear the patterns of life, the little normal parts, the joys that continue at the same time that we've got a crisis going on. I was thinking of Gone with the Wind or The Winds of War. And I recently read the book, The Giver of Stars. Maybe folks have had a chance to read that, about these women. They were funded by some of the funding during the Depression. And in Kentucky, they become horse riders and they take library books out to the communities. There's this real sense of camaraderie, but there's also the little stories that underlie their existence at the time. So I think it's important that we hear about these pockets of joy and normalcy in times of challenge, places of romance and new birth and celebration. It reminds us of the layers. It reminds us that these stories are always building up and they're not all one thing or another. There's also relief. When you're reading these stories and you figure that people somehow overcome that, somehow their common sense or some different part of their way of being manages to turn the scenarios around. Those are those moments when resilience takes center stage. And I'm not thinking here as much of heroic, epic kind of resilience, but more that the stories of the hard learned, the place where maybe it's the salesman or the common sense breadman, when people come forward and based on what they know, they lead the way. And I think resilience, I've thought a lot about resilience lately. It's partly about adaptability, but I think it's something more. I think for resilience to be working, for resilience to mean something, it means you need an honest framing of what the hard questions are. Resilient folks, they know how to ask those honest questions, and then they also have an innate trust in themselves. They have some confidence that if they persevere, it will matter. I think resilience cannot be pure stubbornness, not pure perseverance. There has to be an openness to take in new ideas, to be willing to let new information come through. And you need to be able to sort through the good stuff from the crap. I mean, I think that's, my husband's just laughing here, but I think that is part of what makes us resilient. You also have to own which decisions are yours. Be ready to make the next decision, to be ready to make, in our case, to look at the risks, the balances that we each are going to have to take as we move forward in COVID. We want to make the decisions that we can own, but we don't want to be trying to push back the whole tsunami. It's not all ours to push back. So we are not the first ones to have our lives disrupted, nor the first ones to sacrifice. And we're not the first ones who have had to live for a long time in uncertainty, nor the first to get mixed information and to be really unclear on different roles. One of the challenges I find about loving historical fiction is we can see deep into the stories. We've heard a lot about D-Day and V-Day lately. You can sink deep in those stories, but we sort of know how it comes out, or at least we know one version of it. But we have to remember those characters did not know. They were living in a time of uncertainty, and I think that that's an important part as we hear stories, is to take forward that context, those places where there was fear, those places where there was normalcy, and we don't want to project that everything was horrible or good, but it is a mixed bag. What are the stories that are supporting you over these last 10 weeks? Are you chatting with some of your ancestors? Are you working it through? Who are you reaching out to of different friends and different places? Because I think we are all going to need to know where our sources of strength are in the weeks and the months and possibly years to come. We're still trying to figure this out. I do want to share. There's a story that really is finding a place in my heart. It's a story that I hope that both congregations, both the congregation in Eastertown and the congregation in Chestertown, learn to tell well over the next years. I think the story goes something like this. I want to tell you about something way back in March 2020, when each congregation was going Sunday to Sunday. They had normal services on March 8th. They had guest speakers who spoke at one of the two congregations. Orders of service had been printed, a collection was taken, and coffee was served. There was music. And that was March 8th. There was this word about this coronavirus that was out there, but we didn't know that much. We heard some were dying, but it was just a very few. But somehow between March 8th and March 15th, it was clear we had to cancel our next service. But when we canceled the service, we just canceled it for 1 week. Don't worry, we'll figure it out on a week-to-week basis. As my sons are starting to tell the story, they knew it was serious when the MBA canceled. They're looking at that as the defining moment. But for whatever reasons, it looked like 1 week wasn't enough, and we needed to figure out how to do virtual church. And a small band of folks who did not know each other said, how are we going to do it for March 22nd? And we signed up for YouTube channels. We Googled more things. We swore about a lot of little details, called friends, picked a topic, figured out how computers record and how files upload and download, and the first service happened on March 22nd. And then we tried to get a little better. We did it March 29th, but then the governor had another order, and we moved all the participants of the services to their homes. And then we've done something, and this is the 10th service in that series. That would be the story I would want folks to start hearing, that we've managed not only the services, but we've managed the governance of our congregation. Our caring teams have reached out. We have had small groups that have figured out how to meet. We've gotten Zoom accounts. This is the story that I want to tell about what happened back in March 2020. And I realize I'm just learning to tell it, and it's only May. But I do think we need to tell the story. We have to remember that we didn't do it in a vacuum. All the skills we pulled together were because we had stories of those who came before us. We had a sense of how to adapt. We had tools in our kit. We had a willingness to make decisions, and we had a commitment to a congregation or two congregations that we cared a lot about. Last Saturday evening, I'm hoping many of you heard Obama give his speech to the high school graduation class of 2020. Hopefully you've seen it. If you haven't, it's just worth listening to. It is so wonderful. And he ended with 3 messages to these students. I think it was a message for all of us. His first takeaway is, don't be afraid. We've been through worse, and because of a new generation each time, we have figured out how to do things better. Second, do what you think is right, not what feels good, what feels convenient. Matches that message of trusting ourselves. And finally, build a community. No one does big things by themselves. I know it was a speech I needed to hear. I hope you've all had a chance to replay it and print it. So like our ancestors, we are finding our way through our struggles. In our case, it's COVID-19, and we are still in the middle. My message is someplace between we've got this, we know how to prop one another up, we know how to get through this with grace and with care and with love and with a sense of humor. But I'm also very aware that it is a time of struggle. It's a time where we don't know exactly how it's all going to work out. We know it is, but we're still in that midst, and we'll be there for a while. So there's no magic answer, but I do have a sense of confidence coming through here that we've got some communities to help us. There are those that have come before, that they've done so, that they've come before, and the values of respect and gratitude and kindness have served people very well. And it's always important to stay connected to one another. So amen and blessed be. And our hymn coming up is Immortal Love. The words will come up in just a moment. It's hymn number 10 in the hymnal. And it has been an amazing journey through these 10 services. Blessings. So we just have a couple of announcements. Next Sunday we have a guest minister, Laura Powell-Haney will be preaching, and that will come up on the YouTube channels for Sunday morning. So we are grateful to Laura for that. We are also in both congregations still working out our plans for June, July, and August and figuring out our framework for services. So please stay tuned to the newsletters. Please stay tuned to our websites, and that will help guide us as we make our next sets of decisions on worship and how to stay connected. And as I mentioned earlier, there are Zoom coffee hours for both congregations. If you have any questions, check in with the offices or email me and we can make sure you've got the right Zoom connection point. So at the end of the sermon, I told the story about the 10 weeks of us pulling together these services. Our postlude today is an attempt to say thank you to the many who came forward in many, many aspects of congregational life. We take that risk. Every time you say we're gonna offer out gratitudes, we may have missed someone, and if so, I'm really, really sorry. But there were just so many names, and in some cases, a few pictures that just seemed worth showing as we celebrate the success in 10 weeks of service, and then our commitment to stay connected. And if you have a way you would like to volunteer, if there's a way you would like to help in the congregations, please let me or one of the board presidents know. It is amazing, all the different ideas that are coming forward. So the closing words today, the closing words from our story are from Sydney Wilde. In this community, we give and we receive. May we go forth now and share the bounty of our love. May we leave in a spirit of respect, a spirit of gratitude, and a spirit of kindness. Go in peace. Go in love. Go knowing love surrounds you wherever you may go. And thank you, Nancy, for extinguishing our chalice.
Now please join me as I extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
Say hello to the folks that I know. Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song.